It's time for another edition of Boy Green Daily. We go behind enemy lines to learn a little bit more about the next opponent for the New York Jets. That's the Houston Texans. They're on fire right now. They've got sex appeal. They got playmakers all over the place, and this should be a doozy. Let's get into it. It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans. Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show. Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby. For me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever seen.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas. Hey everybody, my name is Paul Weston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green, New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. This is Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you find your podcast by simply searching for Boy Green Daily. Now, I'm going to be honest. When this game was on the schedule for the New York Jets, I circled it. You know, Jordan Love said he circled the Chiefs game, last week for that game. I had this one circled because I knew that there was a chance for a family reunion. Our man, we rally in the streets for our guy, DJ Bien-Aime, who covers the Houston Texans for the mothership, beaming in from ESPN. DJ, gosh darn Bien-Aime. It's great to have him back, and let's bring him on the show. What's up, DJ?
Hey, how you doing? Gosh darn Bien-Aime. I like that.
That's
that.
Right. Yeah.
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Nice to see y'all again. I too had this week circled once I saw when it was going to be. When I knew the Jets were going to play the Texans mainly because you know who you're going to play. You know who you're going to play prior to the scheduling coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But, seeing that it was going to be late in December when New York is kind of, a little chilly or whatnot. I was like, all right, cool. That'd be smooth. So glad to be on the way back this week. So it should be an interesting game. Sadly, no Aaron Rodgers, but it should be an interesting game.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, DJ, you're on a meteoric rise. I mean, you've just been rising through the ranks. No one can stop you. I mean, it just boom, boom, boom. You're checking off things off your proverbial bucket list almost on a day-to-day basis. So from this to that to New York Daily News, all of a sudden you're at the mothership. You're at ESPN. So just tell us, what is it like covering an NFL team? The Houston Texans, of course, that logo above your head. You're covering the Texans for ESPN. I mean, that's a big-time gig, man. That's big.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the biggest change from the Daily News to ESPN was at the Daily News you could kind of be, how do I put it, not more of yourself. That's not the correct word. By the Daily News, you had less people to answer to, and there were less rules. ESPN is more corporate, which is fine. You're right.
Sure.
Like there's more people you have to answer to. There's more checks and balances, things of that nature. It's not necessarily your beat. Where the Daily News, the Jets was my beat, right? Like for the Daily News, like I didn't necessarily have to check in with people or what I wanted to write. Here, I got to kind of go to more of a process on what exactly we're gonna write because I don't actually write only for Texan fans. I write for a national audience, so we're only gonna write about things that people outside of Houston would be interested in reading. So that was probably the biggest adjustment. Was just that, and just like the way that we have to use Twitter, like just more in a sense, like Twitter. Like they want to at all times, for the most part, be professional, day in and day out. Probably not give too much opinion unless like it's rooted in stats and facts, things like that nature. But that's about that, right? At the end of the day, it's still writing. Just your cadence is different, but it's still writing, it's still reporting, it's still building relationships. So you just answer to more people. But regardless, it's still football, and I get to watch football weekly.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. So some people would call it a coincidence, but I wouldn't call it that. DJ, as soon as you get to Houston, they get a franchise quarterback. I mean, that should have put you in for an instant extension and raise from ESPN immediately as soon as that happened. So what's it like covering a franchise quarterback? Someone that the team took with the number 2 overall pick that could suddenly be good? What is that like?
It was interesting because there was so much deja vu, obviously, dating back to 2021, where the
Yeah.
Jets hired defensive coordinator from San Fran. They
Mhm.
hired the pass game coordinator to be their OC. They had a number 2 overall pick. They drafted a quarterback, number 2 overall. So there was a lot of similarity. I think the only difference was the Texans. They made it a quarterback competition to start out. Even though I don't know if that necessarily mattered or not.
Mhm.
Even like they signed a guy, a receiver that was familiar with the system, right? The Texans signed Robert Woods, who had familiarity with the system, playing under Sean McVay.
Mhm.
And the Texans, the Jets had signed Corey Davis, who had familiarity playing under the system with Matt LaFleur, right? So
Yeah.
there was so much overlap, so much similarity. Like the year before, they both drafted a corner in the top 4. Like they drafted a guy on the D line high, right? The Jets had Quinn Williams, number 3 overall out of Alabama. The Jets drafted, the Texans drafted a D
Will
lineman,
Anderson, yeah.
Will Anderson out of Alabama, number 3 overall. Like there's so they had their 4th round pick was a running back. The Jets was a running back, Michael Carter. The
Mm.
Texans in 2022, their 4th round pick was a running back. Both running backs as rookies look dynamic. You're like, oh my God, there's something to build with here. The next year, they both struggle. Like there's so much like overlap. You know what I mean? Like it's hilarious. Like the Texans have former Jet guys and
Mhm.
things like that. So I mean, there is a lot of. Can you think about it? They got Sheldon.
Sure.
They got George Fant. They got Blake Cashman. Like that's
Is
3.
is Neville
Good.
Hewitt still there?
Neville Hewitt is still
Oh, there you
there.
go. Okay.
Yeah, so like there's a decent amount of. Oh, Matt Amendola is their kicker.
Oh, yes, right. Yeah.
So it's hilarious how like there's so much overlap. The only legitimate difference is the GMs. The GMs have no overlap.
Yeah, right.
Like like Nick Caserio, Patriot guy.
Mhm.
Joe Douglas, more of an Eagle/Ravens guy. So, but the Texans, they for sure have a franchise guy. I think that it's funny because like early on, like it was kind of just but then like one day it was like a Saturday practice. The first time fans were out, just like how the first time the fans were out for Zach.
Yeah.
They both had good days, right? They both had plays that was like, whoa, right? 'Cause I remember Zach first practice where the fans were out during camp. He had that bomb to Elijah Moore.
Oh, yeah.
And then CJ Stroud, his first day with fans, I can remember, I think it was a Saturday. He didn't necessarily have any of the bombs, but he was operating the offense like a vet. That day the ball barely hit the ground. And that's what I was like, all right. That's gonna be a day that I remember. And then like so forth and so forth. And you kind of saw the maturation throughout preseason, the regular season, now to this point where he's gonna win off his rookie of the year. I mean, there's a chance that again, the parallels again, there's a chance they're gonna win. They're gonna have both the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year. So there's just so much overlap and so much parallel. Yeah, it's so wild. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about CJ Stroud because, like, he is having, it's not just a good rookie season. Like, he's having one of the greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen when you look at touchdown interception ratio, the moxie, which is like an eye test sort of thing. Like, he just seems to check off everything. So that's what I was going to ask if there was something during the offseason that collected. Because, again, you saw a little bit of, obviously, that Zach Wilson story of, like, what's different? Oh, did something hit where you're like, whoa, this ain't the normal operation here. There's got to be something different, or maybe a game early during the regular season where, like, wait a second, this cat's different. This cat's going to be a little bit quicker to the NFL game than maybe others. Was there something beyond that Saturday practice?
Yeah. So I think the Saturday practice, when it started for me, I started to see it like kind of click from an operational standpoint of him being able to work within the offense and be quick and decisive. The game where I was like, oh, yeah, they might have a franchise guy was, believe it or not, was the preseason game against the Saints. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was against the Saints. I remember going on my ESPN Houston and talking about it a little bit, but that if you just look at the raw stats, you'd be like, what? How? He went 2 for 4 for like 14 yards with a touchdown. Right. But like the ball placement in that game was utterly insane, where there was like one way through Nico Collins where he put it only where Nico Collins could even catch it, and then DB just made a phenomenal play to rip it out. It was like for 40 yards. and ripped it out. And I remember there was one where he threw it to like Dalton Schultz, where he went through his reads and he placed it to where all Dalton had to do was just this. And then I was just like, okay. And then that was coming off the Dolphins game where I would see him doing like the little nuanced stuff at the quarterback position, where I was like, okay, he could be a franchise guy. Like this is like he has it. Then week 2 against the Colts, right? Even though they were down 31-10, he threw for almost 400 yards. Now, was there a chunk of that a little bit garbage time-ish? Yeah, but like probably only like 40 of it, right? There was like, because like early in the fourth quarter, they had a chance to make it a one-position game, and he had to get sacked a couple times, and that was that. But he was like really ripping some big routes across the middle where he wasn't waiting for it to come open. He was throwing with so much anticipation, hitting Nico and Stroud where they were going for big games, and it was like over and over and over. Times where he would like move the safety with his head and then come back and then fire the dot right into that little window. And that's when I was like, okay, this is going to be the offensive rookie of the year. I remember people asking like, oh, who's the front runner? I was like, it's CJ. Like he just threw for 380 yards to 84 yards, the second most passing yards for a quarterback. That was his most passing yards for a quarterback 21 and younger. Because the guy was number 1 was I think Matthew Stafford, who might have thrown for like 402 or something like that. Or maybe it was something like that. His rookie year. But that's when I was like, all right. Because I was like, nah, this guy has it, right? And then the next week they go to Jacksonville. He torches them. Then they come back against the Steelers. He torches them. Then they have like a little, slump period. But then the Bucs game happens where CJ goes absolutely bonkers. And then they go, into Cincinnati and they beat the Bengals, who at that point had beaten the Seahawks, the Niners, and the Bills back to back to back.
And they still had Joe Burrow, for people who forget that one. They still had Burrow.
Wow. Yeah, they still had Burrow. So I was thoroughly impressed across the board in that regard. So I would say when it started clicking in my eyes, I'm like, was the Saturday practice when I knew he could become a franchise guy was the Saints preseason game. And then when I was like, yeah, it's over with, it was that Colts game.
All right, let's talk about another similarity. It is that draft where they took a couple of corners, they being the Texans and the Jets respectively. Texans got the first whack of the pinata. They take Derek Stingley. The Jets end up getting Sauce Gardner. And DJ, I will say this, that I do believe, I'm not speaking out of turn here, that when a lot of people were trying to dunk on the Texans during that rookie year, saying, dumb idiots, look, the Jets got Sauce, and look at the Texans doing dumbass things. They took Stingley, and he stinks. I remember being a constant presence on Twitter. People, I don't think we have to pit them against each other. We have 2 really good corners here, and they're 2 really good corners. They're going to be really good, and it seems like some of the Texan fans are cashing in some receipts this year with how Stingley's been looking.
Yeah, man, I think I knew Sting was going to take a jump, mainly because this defense, as you know, is designed for corners to play really well. We've seen that with Sauce, DJ Reed,
of course,
Tavarius Ward when DeMeco still had him. Obviously, again, even the 2021 season, people thought that Bryce Hall could become something, mainly because he was like top 5 in pass breakups. So I knew once Stingley got into this defense, he was going to be able to thrive. And the first Ravens game this year, he was, I don't want to use the word utterly dominant because he did have a pass interference, which was kind of ticky-tack. But when I mean he was clamping Odell, like Odell stole something from his family, and he wanted to show Odell, you're not going to keep stealing from my family. That's what it looked like. And there was a play where he almost had a pick 6 in that game, if not for Jalen Petrie I think he took the ball, right? Because they went a 0 blitz, and Lamar had to get the ball out quickly. And Stingley, he just sat there, and he knew Odell was going to have an outbreaking route. And once he saw it, he broke, but the ball just, bounced to him. But that was going to be for 6. So I already knew, okay, he was going to take that leap. But then he got hurt. But the fact that he came back now, when he came back to that Bengals game, it looked like he did get beat for a touchdown, but having talked to people, that wasn't necessarily on him. That was more on Jalen Petrie not getting over top. But even then, he still made it a tight window catch. But there was a period throughout the first half where, because it's funny, Stingley was going to be on a pitch count, Steven Nelson was going to be on a pitch count. So at one point, I think to start the game, it was Stingley and Shaq Griffin, and then I think at one point it was Stingley got replaced by Steven Nelson, and it was still Shaq Griffin. And then once it was just Stingley and Nelson with Tavierre in the slot, there was a point where the Bengals had 3-4 straight, not like 3 and outs, where like they average I think like 0 yards per pass attempt because like they were just those two were strapping up. So I was like, okay, it's starting to look like okay, even though he took a bunch of time off, he was like knocking off the rust and starting to come together. And then you had the 3-game stretch where he had 4 interceptions in 3 games. So I never ever wavered over like my takes on Stingley because I saw the talent when studying the film in college and seeing him in practice, and so I'm like, yo, no, this guy's different. And on top of it, he has a one thing that people forget when it comes to being a really, really good corner, like an elite corner. At the base, you need like some guys can overcome it. Like I think DJ Reeves overcame it, but at the base, you need to have God-given genetical freak ability from an athletic standpoint. And Stingley has that because his dad, his granddad obviously played in the NFL. Then his dad was he played arena football and was a minor league baseball player.
Wow.
So he has elite genes. So all it was for him was just, being able to stay healthy. And when he's healthy, you see what he's doing. He's doing acrobatic stuff, taking the ball away. So, like granted, I'm still kind of losing I thought Sting was going to be better than Sauce to start. I technically I'm still losing that debate. But in reality, like they're both, as we both said, like really, really good players that are going to be here for a very long time where it don't really matter who you got. It's like, all right, this guy's really good. This guy's really good. We're good to go, right? Like at the cornerback position doesn't necessarily matter. Like, oh, if Sauce is all pro and Stingley is just Pro Bowl level, all right, you still got 2 really, really good players that you can rely on week in and week out to hold their own and shut down their side of the field. It's not like quarterback where it's like, well, if you miss or the other guy is drastically better than the other guy, now you're like, what the bleep? What did we just do? So I'm gonna still take Stingley long term, but I can't act like either one is a bad pick, right? Like Sauce is great. I think Stingley's gonna be great, and you can have 2 good players.
Of course, especially for the same class. So, that's great for the league to have players that talented. Tell me if this is a Big Apple thing that's happening here, because and this just maybe Houston doesn't get the coverage they deserve, so that's why these names I'm about to say didn't get the pub that they deserve. But when I looked on paper, I'm like, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Noah Brown, Robert Woods. Who the hell are these people? I'm like, man, the Texans aren't doing any solids for CJ Stroud. Then I see these guys delivering. Obviously, unfortunately, Tank Dell with the injury, but prior to the injury, looking great. Nico looking really good, and all these other players that I mentioned. Is it CJ Stroud is so good that really anyone at receiver he was able to pick up? And this is a wild comparison to make, but Tom Brady was able to do that for a long time. That's like the Randy Moss years and a couple other ones. He just elevated the talent around him to be better because they were playing with him. Or is it that these receivers for the Texans weren't getting enough credit and they were much better than we gave credit for on the outside? Which one's more true, or it's some combination of both?
I would say the latter. Like I think obviously CJ is elevating them a little bit more, like with the off the script stuff. But I think it's a combination of Bobby Slowick puts them in really good positions across the board, the offensive coordinator. CJ is obviously a ball play specialist, and then the receivers are better than what we realized. Like Nico's taking a massive leap. Tank was cooking. Noah Brown has had moments where he's coming again. Like he had 1 week where he had back-to-back games where over 150 yards, right? So like it can't be all CJ just elevating everybody because like as we see with the Chiefs now.
Sure.
You clearly see, like, you just can't give a quarterback anybody and think he's just going to elevate everybody. No, that's kind of virtually impossible, right? Like, because even, like, people still talk about last year, but Travis Kelce was a lot more healthier, and Juju was basically a 1,000-yard receiver last year. I think he missed a couple of games. He left him with a concussion, and he missed one. So I think he played 15 games, but he had almost 1,000 yards. So, like, if you're going to – like, they don't have another receiver that can, legitimately win, play in and play out, where the Texans have – at one point, they had 3. Right now, Tank is down. It is what it is. But, and then they still have Dalton Schultz. And I think the most underrated part is their O-line from a pass blocking standpoint is really good. It's really good because you got Larry Tunsil, who's one of the best tackles in the league. You have George Fant. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, George Fant has been playing really well this year. Shaq Mason has been really good at the right guard spot. So they've been able to – because CJ, like, what people don't realize, he has the longest time. He's up there with time to throw. Like, it's in the 3s
Wow.
And he does it, and his pressure rate is still middle tier, like it's still league average, which lets me know that he still has a lot of time. There's a time where he can go 1, 2, 3 and get the ball out without a guy even touching him. Where some guys, if they go 1, 2, and then they try to get 3, there's going to be a defensive lineman kissing them in the mouth, right?
Mhm.
So that's all I would say is a combination of like the pieces around him have elevated him, but he also elevates them. So it's a conjuncture of both. I would say that the receiving core is a lot better than we realize, and CJ would even admit that he got some ballers play alongside with him.
Well, I would say, one of the hires that a lot of people were talking about, of course, was DeMeco Ryans. He seemingly had a lot of offers on the outside to go anywhere, but it seemed almost touching, poetic, that he would go back to the team that he once played for to suit up potentially for the Houston Texans as a coach this time around. So let me ask you, he looks like a really good coach. But is it more so him just being a really good coach, or the Texans just happen to hit on a quarterback, and he looks even better than maybe he really is?
Yeah, I would say just he hit on it. They hit on a quarterback. I think like and we're seeing it now, but like even with Salah, right? Like they missed on a quarterback, and they've had quarterback injuries, and like how that just completely like derails the entire franchise, right? So I would say it's more they hit on CJ, and that makes everybody's job easier, right? Because like again, it doesn't really matter how good of a coach you are. Like did Mike Vrabel forget how to coach? No, he's just his quarterback situation just got out of hand, and the pieces around the quarterback also deteriorated too. So like I think it's just more like they hit on the quarterback. They already had the pieces in because what a lot of people didn't realize last year, yes, they went 3-13-1, but a lot of their games were decided in the fourth quarter. Like they lost to the Bears, which was like last drive, threw a pick. That cost them that game. Same with the Broncos game where they had the ball last multiple times and they couldn't pull that one out. Cowboys game, they were on the 1 yard line, like a chance to go up 2 scores with under 3 minutes to go, and they didn't. They failed on 4th down and they lost that game. And you have another game against the Chiefs where they get into overtime and then Davis Mills is scrambling and fumbles. The next play, McKendrick, he ends up taking a handoff and getting into the end zone. Like there's so many games from that previous season where like you could see like, oh, they just need a quarterback, right? Like cause there's one game where Derrick Henry ran for like 2 something and put up only 17 points, right? And like they lost 17-10, but they had a better quarterback. They might have been able to win those type of games, right? So that's what I would say. Like they were a lot closer than people realized. And that's what they needed to do was add that because it's not like they made that many changes in the offseason. They brought in Tank, they brought in Schultz, they brought in Woods, they brought in Mason. And on the defensive side, they brought in Denzel Perryman, they brought in Sheldon Rankins, and they brought in Will Anderson, and they brought in Jimmy Ward. But for the most part, the nucleus was still there. They just had to add like the most important ingredient, which was the quarterback. And they added him, and now they're 7-5 with a chance to make the playoffs.
A couple of quickies before we get you out of here, DJ. A really cool comment by DeMeco Ryans at one of his early pressers earlier this week, talking about how important Salah was to getting him his first stop because in 2017, he needed Salah to, quote unquote, as DeMeco put it, twist the arm of Kyle Shanahan to get him in the room. And once you got him in the room, obviously the rest is history with getting that head coaching gig. So you mentioned they both the Texans and Jets picked from that San Francisco tree, picking their head coach. It was really cool to hear DeMeco's origin story and how much credit he gives to Salah in particular, but a couple of those 49ers people for helping him start his journey, and now he's off to the races.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he has very high respect for Salah. Like I think Salah is the closest coach he is to in the league because of how Salah's helped prepare him for this opportunity. I remember back in at the end of the 2021 season, me and Salah would like talk about DeMeco a little bit, just about like what DeMeco could be and things of that nature. I think at that point they had got to the NFC Championship game having beat 2 really good offenses, right? They beat the Cowboys to get to the second round, and the defense completely stifled Aaron Rodgers and that company and that group. And they got to the NFC Championship game, and obviously the Rams were destined that year, obviously. But like he talked really highly about him in that regard. And I remember, just how Salah. I remember one time telling me something on the lines of he knew DeMeco was always going to be a good coach, mainly because he was big on trying to teach. Like he's big on teaching players how to, do what's being asked. And he asked me today, what's the favorite thing that Salah taught you? And was again him teaching players. Like I remember he told me a story where like not Salah. Salah told me a story where DeMeco was trying to reach a player and he didn't know how to. And like that really bugged him because he cared so much about trying to reach that player and teach that player what he was trying to explain to him when he was a linebacker coach for the Niners. And I think Salah said that really stuck in his head because some coaches would be like, he ain't trying to learn. All right, F him. Let's keep it pushing.
Right.
And DeMeco isn't necessarily one of those coaches in that regard. But yeah, it's going to be, pure, I guess, mentor versus mentee on Sunday. But yeah, it's going to be, DeMeco has a lot of respect and admiration for Salah.
You said this before, DJ. You were the first one that I saw do it a couple of weeks ago. You threw it out there. I think you must have heard it. I think you said Texans PR, but this Jets-Texans game might be a Monday Night Football flex. Thank God it wasn't, as we're seeing here from a Jets perspective. But it sounded sexy a couple of weeks ago. I said, maybe not bad, but probably best for all parties. We kind of left it parked right there where it was. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. There was a chance. I think I think I remember hearing about it like the Bengals game, but like if they would have played just a smidge, Zach played just a smidge better, didn't get benched. I think that would have got flexed, mainly because of to get CJ on a national stage.
Sure.
Obviously against a team that's also at that time would have been if Zach just played a little bit better and the pieces around Zach played a little bit better. O-line played better. Alan Lazard was playing up to his contract. O-line playing better, whatever. Remember they had all the injuries. Then, man, I say they were like 5-7 at this point. Then I could have, if they were trending that way, then I could have seen that getting flexed or whatnot. Because again, for them to even be 5-7, they would have had to have been like 5-4 at one point or something of that nature, or at least, at that point, possibly, in that mix to where they had a shot. I think when they beat the Bengals, that was the week that they had to play. The Jets played the Raiders.
Right.
And obviously they lost to the Raiders. But if they say they win that game, now they've been like 5-4 at that point.
Correct. Yeah.
They've been 5-4 or whatever the record is. They've been 5-4 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it would have made a lot more sense. But obviously once that got benched, that was kind of because again, like you could sell that way better. Like you could sell number 2 overall pick versus number 2 overall pick, 2 overall pick from number 2021, 2 from 2023. Former co-workers, both fighting for an AFC playoff spot. You could sell that way better. Where like now, the game that's they were gonna flex is Packers versus Giants. Packers versus Giants, both teams are still fighting for a playoff spot. So like there's still some level of intrigue in that regard. So
are the Texans making the playoffs? And if so, are they making a little run, or is it more so, hey, this is their first time being here in a very long time? It's an introduction for these younger players, get a taste, and hey, the real competing starts after the season.
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll get in. What spot? Not sure. I don't. The only way they can make a run though is if like they get the run game going. Yeah, like the only way they can make a run because I think we get so enamored with the quarterbacks and stuff, but most teams that make a run in the playoffs have their run game is working at a very good level. And Texas run game has only had like 3-4 weeks the entire season where they even rushed for over 100 yards. Wow. So that's their biggest issue because their offense at its best when they can run the ball, right? Like the majority of games outside of one where they scored over 30, the run game was working. Jacksonville, the run game was working the first time when they scored 37. The run game was working against the Steelers when they scored 30. The run game was working. I think like Demo Singletary ran for like 150 against the Bengals. They scored 30. So like when the run game is working for them, even against the Cardinals, I think the run game is working. But when the run game is working for them, that's when they have their best shot of being balanced. They can just go. Their play action game works a lot better. So and they can kind of keep teams off balance. The past few weeks, their offense has kind of sputtered, mainly because they haven't been able to successfully run the ball consistently to where now you're kind of having the defense kind of play off kilter, things of that nature. So if they can get the run game going, then yeah. But if they can't get a run game going, they don't got no shot. They don't got no shot winning. Because you got to think about it. If they get in, right, it's either going to play Miami, Ravens, Chiefs, or Jags. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, you beat the Jags, but you beat the Jags in September. Like,
Yeah.
September results mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, because again, like the first 4 weeks, the Bucks started out 3-1. Now they're like 5-7. Like, what happens in the first 3 games means nothing, right?
Yeah.
So, I would say, like that's the issue. So if they can't run the ball against those teams, then you're basically going to ask a 22-year-old to carry you through a playoff game. And as great as CJ is, that's not a recipe for success in that scenario.
Yeah, that's wild. I thought Dameon Pierce would have went buck wild this year, but same thing. We mentioned Michael Carter earlier. Sometimes you just run into some of those struggles. So, DJ, do you have any plans to meet up with any of your old former Jet beat buddies? Any plans?
Probably before the game.
Yeah,
Probably before the game.
Who you're seeking out? Who's on the list? Who's on the DJ party list? Who you hitting up?
I'm probably gonna go tailgate first.
There you go.
I'll probably tailgate first.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll for sure. That matter more to me is tailgating. In all honesty, the tailgates are a good show in MetLife. I'm gonna hang with some friends prior to the game, like that Saturday night.
Yeah,
that's about it. I don't really do too much when I travel anymore, mainly because I don't be caring to do all that stuff. I just be trying to.
I feel you.
Yeah, traveling is so tiresome sometimes. I just be trying to chill sometimes, man. I ain't gonna lie.
I respect it.
Yeah,
you're grinding out there. You're grinding out there, man. And final thing here, any final message? All the Jets Twitter people or any Jets people in general, they loved having you here. And, it's that's like I said, it's been a storyline for me. Jets Texans, number one storyline. I was like the return of DJ Gashguard Bien-Aime, baby. So, any final message, all your Jets peeps over here in the crib?
That's a good question. One message.
Yeah.
Is that you all should be very happy that Aaron Rodgers is not coming back this year.
For sure. Yeah, I don't. If you would have told me this a bunch of months ago, I'm like, what are you talking about? I want Aaron Rodgers back. After, you know what? 2024, not too shabby.
Yeah,
nice.
Literally. Year. Yeah. The only thing that sucks though is y'all not gonna get a 4th place schedule with Aaron Rodgers next year. Y'all get a 3rd place schedule.
Yeah. Would have been softer on the 4, but I think New England's got that pretty much on lock.
Exactly. So, I think you'll end up playing the Chargers, what you guys obviously can beat.
Sure, yeah.
The Browns and Steelers. Well, Browns and Steelers. And then who's in AFC South? Whoever finishes 3rd, it could be the Texans again. Because the Colts and Texans could get in. So.
Yeah, they're right there, which is crazy. If you would have told me that before the year, I would have been like, no chance.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow,
no chance.
Yeah.
Look at them now, so
you never know. Well, DJ, it's always great connecting, brother. Thanks for chatting, man, and enjoy the week. Enjoy the week for Jets Texans. Should be a lot of fun.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.